to-do list for the win. Can you hear that? I'm a little bit under the weather. The first year appearance... Lilo. When considering environmental issues, I think it's important to first take a step back and think about that lens that we are viewing that problem through, or should be viewing that problem through. Our own perspectives affect our goals, how we go about solving that problem, and why we care in the first place. Hey everyone, you found my channel, Small Steps Towards Making a Difference. I'm Megan, and I'm a licensed teacher specializing in environmental science and biology. I've created this channel to educate others, and myself to be honest, about environmental issues and small action steps we can put in place to make a difference with regards to those issues. So at the end of each video, I'm going to give you a little task to do, usually taking less than 5 minutes because I know that your time is valuable. Of course, these tasks aren't required, but this is where the rubber really hits the road. Okay. Let's get into it. So we're going to talk about environmental value systems, which I learned about preparing to teach IB environmental science. So if you are here to learn about IB environmental science or prepare for a test, this could be a good starting point for you, but it's definitely not going to be all-encompassing. So I definitely recommend checking out another video. Okay, so let's talk about the first environmental value system called ecocentrism. This belief system puts nature and ecology as central to life and emphasizes a less materialistic approach to life. So the next environmental value system is Anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism puts humans at the center of decision making and believes that humans are in charge of managing the global systems. You may be thinking, oh, this is inherently not as great, and that's not actually the case. There is no bad environmental value system, and in some cases, anthropocentrism is a lot more realistic than ecocentrism. The next perspective I'd like to talk about isn't often included with these other environmental value systems, and that is biocentrism. Rather than putting ecology specifically at the focus, biocentrism looks at each individual life and puts great value on that life. As a child, I was really born into the anthropocentric point of view. Humans are the center of the universe. How can you not think that as a child born in Western societies? Post high school, I started to transition into this more ecocentric perspective, and now in my later 20s, I'm going towards this biocentric perspective, which I think is actually not the most realistic, but it's what my heart has been calling me towards. In my ideal world, maybe I'd shift a little bit more back towards that ecocentric perspective, but I also don't really want to force how I feel. So, I don't know, just something to think about. That brings up a couple points for me. Number one, these environmental value systems are heavily shaped by your upbringing, right? What religion you're born into, what culture, what economic status, the friends you have, the political viewpoints of your parents, all of these things throughout your life, but especially when you're young, work on shaping this environmental value system that you're going to eventually have. The other thing is that it's on a spectrum. There isn't necessarily a lot of people that have a specific, only ecocentric point of view. Sometimes we oscillate back and forth between the viewpoints, and that brings me to our last environmental value system, which is technocentrism. Now, technocentrism is often considered to be the most optimistic point of view. Technocentrists believe that technology will solve our environmental problems, that human ingenuity will bring about the end to a lot of the biggest environmental issues we see today. Obviously, that's going to happen, but how much do you rely on that point of view, really? Do you fully believe that that's going to be the truth in all cases, or do you think that that's not necessarily going to be the truth in all of the situations we encounter? They all actually have subcategories, but ecocentrism has two subcategories that I want to focus on here. The first is called soft ecology, and the second is deep ecology. Soft ecology puts focus on small-scale community-based action. Deep ecology is kind of the opposite of that. It calls for a deep revolutionary shift. Like, we're talking actually uprooting the systems that we are based on in Western culture and actually changing those. Let me give you a couple examples. Greta Thunberg is a true deep ecologist. Bernie Sanders is a good example of somebody, if you aren't as familiar with Greta. And then let's talk about anthropocentrism. So Donald Trump is obviously a good example of anthropocentrism because he puts humans at the center of his decision making. Well, some might say he puts money and power at the center of his decision making, but if we're talking about these categories, humans. However, there are a lot of people who have completely different values than Donald Trump who are also anthropocentrists. I would consider Barack Obama an anthropocentrist, at least in how he presents himself to the public. And then Al Gore, I would also consider to be an anthropocentrist because he really tries to, again, put humans at the center in a lot of his conversations. Now, Al Gore has done more for climate change than basically all of us will ever do. Maybe. I don't want to limit you, but he's done a lot for climate change. He really introduced it to the majority of the public. So there you go. It really isn't all good or all bad with anthropocentrism or with any environmental value system. Another thing we can talk about is not only people as direct examples, but groups. So if we look at religion, Christianity is really considered the poster child of anthropocentrism. In the Bible, you'll hear these phrases come up about being stewards of the earth, right? We are there to tend to it. It is ours and we must take care of it. Whereas in Buddhism, there's this idea that it's more of a spiritual connection to the earth. Buddhism has a lot more language that evokes ecocentrism. And then if we look at cultures, the first pioneers who came to America were operating off of this manifest destiny, anthropocentric point of view, whereas the Native Americans operated from this more ecocentric connection with nature. Now here comes the part of the video where I ask you to make this a little bit personal for yourself. So I want you to analyze your own perspective. I told you a little bit about how mine shifted over time, but I don't want to influence you with how I feel. So I'm going to ask you to ask yourself two questions. And the first is, what does your environmental value system look like today? How would you describe it? The second is, how would you like it to shift over time? Do you have any desires to become more of one value system or over another? I want you to set a timer for 5 minutes, and during that 5 minutes, free write a response to both of those questions. I hope it goes well. You can do it now. If you don't have time though, please write it down so that you don't forget. After you finish, come back, leave a comment on how it went. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for today. Please don't forget to do that task before watching my next video. Have a great one. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. It really means a lot. Have a good day.